Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode. So the cleaning is complete and it's time to assemble the watch again. I'm not going to disassemble, clean, lubricate and reassemble the movement because at the moment I don't have the space for it. I have a lot of other watches that I opened beforehand, 2 watches specifically, and I need to complete them first. The ring turned out very interesting. It's actually like a rose gold ring now. The white coating is almost completely worn off and you can see that it's more of an orange color now after it's cleaned. The case back turned out pretty incredible. It's quite hard to find them in this condition. There is no rust inside the case back and there are no scratches as well, so it's pretty lucky. And the case also cleaned pretty well. I was actually considering maybe using a 518 crystal instead of 5022 because I don't have many 5022 crystals left. But I compared these and these ones specifically are actually very deep dish, so it didn't seem like a viable option. And one interesting thing I've observed about these crystals is that there is a reason why these are actually old stock, new old stock crystals. They are actually defectively manufactured, and you can maybe see that this part is short and this part is higher, so they have like a slope here. So what I do is that I try to position the underside of the slope on the underside of the watch and high side of the slope on the high side of the watch. This way it's like a viewing angle for the watch. I bought this knowingly and I previously purchased the rest from the seller as well, so I knew it. Interestingly, the 5118s have the same issue as well, so maybe it's actually a widespread issue. When you mount these crystals, you usually check the fitment, and when I first discovered it I thought I couldn't actually push it, which was surprising, and it took quite some time to realize that the crystals themselves were skewed. I removed the rings and personally I position the rings on 3 o'clock. So basically I position it to be parallel to the stem. Normally it's suggested to position it at 6 o'clock, but I think that takes away from the look of the watch. The 3 o'clock area is already crowded. There is a crown which has its own lines, so basically adding another line there makes the watch a bit less appealing, and when you place it here I think it doesn't look good. I don't think there is a technical reason to place it there. I mean, it's not like there's a specific shape. I can see the crystal cut. Crystal is also very, very dusted. There's something on the crystal. Ah, it's on the other side. The hardest part is getting the crystal dust free before getting it into the case. It's a good idea to clean it before, because when it's on the case, you can get things stuck in between the armor ring, and it's just harder to reach. Normally I place the logo in a regular position as well, so it's in line with the watch. However, obviously on these crystals, since they are skewed, I place the skew upwards instead. I'm trying to find the cut, the loop. Found it. So they are defective on the acrylic front, but they are actually quite impressive on the crystal ring front. They look quite impressive. So basically I placed my finger on the crystal, so I now need to polish the crystal or clean the crystal. It's really unfortunate to put a fingerprint on the underside of the crystal, but it was dusty anyway, so it's not such an unfortunate thing. It's a good idea to keep mini clean microfiber clothes in your drawer. You just can't get enough of them, and after a while you can no longer use them because the dust particles then get onto the crystal again. Crystals aren't usually perfect, and once I received a crystal that the scratch in the inner part. It was a new also crystal, but it came scratched, and you have to be very careful when polishing the inside of the crystal, because it's really easy to remove the logo, and the polishers are very abrasive. On this crystal, I think it's a good idea to align the logo upwards, because the slope isn't that extreme, and it's almost aligned with the logo as well. It's safe to touch these parts, because you don't actually see these parts. In my defense, it's also a bit hard to do these and record, and I'm very new at it. I think I did a good job. Let me check it with a loop as well. Sadly, there is a something like plastic filament dust in between the armor ring, so I have to remove it and reattach it. It's very unfortunate, but better to do it now than do it later on. Since the tips are like blades, it's really hard to not get anything stuck at the tip of them. Even now there's Inside seemed like a better idea to just use this crystal as it is, because the ring was already perfect, so positioning it wasn't really that necessary. But the damages, even if you discard the crystal, it's like $30, so not that extreme. I think it's very important to press here, where the two ends of the armor ring meets, and it's very important that the ring is fully inserted, because when you press it, it really shows if it's not pressed properly. And also I think it cancels out the waterproofness of the watch if the ring isn't perfectly seated, because it presses onto this area. I think it's good enough at this point. Placing the crystal on a black background helps to see whether there is anything on it. I think it's good. You can see where the cut is at. Okay, it's ready to be pressed, almost ready to be pressed. Actually not ready to be pressed, because you can see that it's secured. I better to align it properly and make the first press. More balanced. So right now it's balanced, and it seems to be aligned as well. Now let's switch on to the crystal pressing part. I use a 30mm die to support the case, and I've carved out this part only to allow the crown tube to safely press it. Some cases have the crown tubes cut, and some tubes, some cases have them still attached. I actually dislocated the crystal anyway, so let me show. So sometimes there can be a crystal tube coming out of here, and if you just use the die as it is, it bends that tube that isn't cut. In this watch it's cut, so it won't be an issue, but usually it becomes an issue. To press the crystals I use 31 millimeters. Basically mount the case here and just press. I've never damaged a crystal yet, and I think it's very hard to damage them. But I once disformed a crystal, and the reason was a very rusty case. And when the case is rusty, and the places that we cleaned, and when they don't clean well and there are imperfections, it can prevent a crystal from being pressed the first time. And I think first press is very important, and if you press in an imbalanced way, it can deform the crystal a bit, and after that point it's really hard to press it again. From sounds of it, it was a very successful press. It was a very clean press. You can see whether it's clean or not from the inside, and if there is a gap, it's not a clean press, and this one is very successful. Sadly the alignment is off. So I'm going to press it again. It's not easy being obsessive and working on watches. Clean the case again. I'm going to clean the crystal again. Since the first press was successful, likely this one is going to be easier. It's also a good idea to check the alignment with an actual dial. When does it matter? It matters if there is a magnifier ring, and those magnifier rings are really hard to get right. You can actually position it after being pressed too, but it's a bit harder to see. And I normally use my phone's flash, but in this case I'm actually recording with my phone too, so can't see it properly. I am going to pause this video and use the flash and then come back. So it looked good, and now I'm going to press it again. The sound is satisfying. The ring is perfectly pressed, and the alignment is better. Maybe it's like 0.5 degrees off, but it's acceptable. And looking at the part where the armor ring presses onto the case, it's perfectly placed as well. There are some specs inside the case. It's not very important to get them all out at this point, because I'm eventually going to reopen the case again. And I think I'm ready to insert the dial inside the case. Dislocated something, but I can check later. Actually, let me just clean the movement a bit too. There is like something under the date ring and it's bothering me. There's a little speck there. I'm going to push it out. Actually, it makes more sense to just take it with a putty. Got it. Now I'm going to place the moment onto this cushion and place the case onto the moment. It is perfectly seated now. Inserting the chrome just for positioning. And then I start with the case clamp that's on the opposite side of the crown. The high part is on the upside. Sorry, I touch the camera from time to time. I should find a better placement for it. It's very important to not unscrew this all the way. Because the imbalance could be damaging to the dial. This is also a good demonstration of why actual proper watchmakers shouldn't be recording their work, because it's very distracting and, as I noticed, hard to get a good recording angle and also a good screwing angle at the same time. I think I need another light source as well. Only a singular light source here, and the camera is blocking my light out. Now I can start screwing down the screws. I'm actually pressing from the middle as well. A balanced case clamp assembly, I think, protects the dial, and I think it's good enough. Let's insert the crown as well temporarily. Another thing I forgot to check is whether the watch is doing the day change, and luckily it isn't. So it is done. Not inserting a O-ring as well yet. I'm going to install the O-ring when I'm ready to service the watch. I think the watch turned out very impressively. Even in this condition, it's much better looking. I think I scratched the armor ring during removal. Didn't happen before, and I'm a bit sad about it. It almost looks like there is like a hair stuck in there, but it's actually a scratch. And I really hate damaging watch parts. So it's a burden I'm going to have to carry for a couple of days until I forget about it. Luckily, in the grand scheme of things, it's a spider dial and it's already a very crowded dial, and you actually wouldn't be able to notice it maybe if you didn't know about that small armor ring scratch. I wish one day Omega sells replacement parts. Normally these crystals should be like $25 etc, and you can just buy them in bulk and change them however and whenever you like. Now the second step is end link calibration. I use empty cases for calibration. This handling is actually in very good shape, but that is because it's already calibrated. You can see that it's someone bent it upwards. I'm going to use it as it is. I don't like changing things if there is no need to change them. This one is also calibrated. So maybe whoever lists these watches for Goodwill actually did the calibration as well, but let me just show how I recalibrate them. I basically just press and flatten them, and maybe with my hand just squeeze them just a little bit. I then check their fitment. For example, this part could be a bit deeper, so actually squeezing this might be a good idea. And I need to reapply my masking tape as well, so I just squeeze it a little bit. You can see that now it's recessed slightly as a result. So basically it's just flattening using a masked plier. It's also a very good idea to check your work at each small change, because it's easy to make big mistakes. I use 1.8 millimeter thick pins. This way vintage straps don't wiggle too much and they look better on the watch. I generally use the original 16 millimeter pin that they came with, and this seems to be it. But this is not. No, it could be actually the original Omega pin. The logo aligns with the watch logo. It's a bit loose. And you can see that there's a lot of play, so basically I should have just tested it on the test case first. I'm going to flatten it first before squeezing, and maybe squeeze just a little bit. As you can see, this part is higher, so I'm going to squeeze that part a bit. Actually managed to squeeze it quite a bit. You also need to correct their angle sometimes. You can see that this is angled downwards, but the case angle is actually more upwards. Going to flatten here, so I'm still very upset about the armoring that got scratched. But on the bright side, at least it's a perfect fitment for that armoring, and this ending is not perfect as well. Almost perfect. Let's check it. So the angle is an issue again. If these are angled more towards the case, it's going to be a better fitment. So when you pull it, they tend to show it, but I think it's good enough. There is no need to push it to perfection. Let's check this one. This one has a bit of play too, mainly on the right side from your viewpoint. So basically this is not an exact science, but one tip that I can give is to never bend the upper parts of it. Sometimes you have to restore this original angle if someone changed it, and for that it's my suggestion is to go very slow and check the result at each change, and also use a masked plier and very little force. Sometimes you need to correct these buckles too. And as far as I remember, the suggestion was to only gently bend the upper part with hand, not without using any tools, but just using hand. For example, this is a little skewed. It sits perfectly now. This crystal, I got it from AliExpress, and it's not a bad crystal, but obviously the shape is very different. It goes, it has a higher incline after one point, and whereas on regular crystals the dome part is more homogeneous, I guess. Also, I out of curiosity tested it with a test dial, and the armoring was too large, so it's definitely not usable on a C case. And this one is, I think, satisfactory. Maybe this can be angled better. This part can be angled better. Like I said, the problem with these endings are the angle. So they should be squeezed a bit more here, and their angles should be corrected like this, so they are more in line with the case. This is my conclusion, but I'm not going to do that now. Instead, just going to quickly improve this one a bit. I have used this case a bit, but I should be very more careful with this one because it's actually a pristine case by my standards. The lines are all original. It again has a bit of play, but definitely a lot more better. Ready to go on the actual watch. So this concludes the first part of the restoration for this watch. I don't have any steel 42054 crowns left, as I noticed, so I'm going to purchase a new one. and going to service this watch. When I was disassembling it, and it was working, but it's no surprise that it's not working now, and because there is some residue inside, but surprisingly there is no rust or any other deformation on the dial, so that is very lucky. And let's see it. Near other olive dials. The Meister one I restored. This one actually had some rust in the dial. I am sorry, in the movement. And the unfortunate part was that it had a rusted dial retainer screw as well. I think it's one of the worst things you can have on a watch, because if the dial doesn't release, there is no way to easily and safely remove it. I ended up for 3 months I bought an insulin syringe, and I applied a rust solution to the retainer screw, and ultimately it, I think, turned out beautifully. Now this one, I believe to be an identical dial, but as I see, it's actually a different dial. The hue is quite different, and the gradient is also less shiny. Now even these two are different. You can see that the gradient on this one is definitely a lot more shinier. It's almost unlegible. You can't read the constellation, automatic, etc. And I didn't actually expect to purchase a different variant. I basically was expecting this to be identical to this one. Maybe it's changed its hue. No, I don't think so. I think it was a different color, maybe a different batch. The watch that is now on auction is identical to this one. I actually paid extreme amount of money for this watch. When I bought this watch, I didn't have an olive dial, so I was very excited. I paid almost 3 times a regular CK's money. And now that a new one is auction, I suspect it's just going to sell for a regular CK's price. And these days, no one demands watches anymore, and special watches sell for really ridiculous amounts of money. But I'm glad that my olive collection is now complete, and I didn't expect this to be so different than the other ones. You can also see that the font is thinner as well, and it's thicker on this and thinner on this one. So it's definitely 100% different dial, different color. Really unexpected. So I should conclude this video, and I'm going to service this one as well, but not anytime soon, maybe in some months. Actually, it could be sooner because it's not working. I expected it to be in working condition, but it will probably bother me, and after I lessen my workload and finish watches I already opened, I'm going to come back to this one.